Ohio begins to reopen. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News, and Daryl Rowland, public affairs editor for the Columbus Dispatch. Well, welcome to Columbus on the Record. We're still in our virtual meeting look, but hopefully for not too much longer. Ohio is starting to reopen. After about a week of buildup, Governor Mike DeWine this week outlined his plan to get Ohio's economy open gradually and slowly. Here it is. Hospitals and dental clinics can now start doing non-essential procedures. On Monday, factories, warehouses, offices can reopen. There are rules, however. Businesses must conduct daily health assessments of their employees and clean and sanitize daily. Employees have to keep their distance from each other, and employees must wear face masks.
These are first steps. First steps in regard to retail, first steps in regard to moving forward with manufacturing, with office, with the medical side. These are things that we've been waiting to do. Because of what you have done, we are now in the position to do them.
Not on the list yet. Retail opens in a couple of weeks, but restaurants, bars, and hair salons are not quite ready to be open. Daryl Rowland, it's not a stay-at-home order. It's a stay safe Ohio order. We should always stay safe. We don't need an order, I guess, but it goes now until the end of May. But we are seeing things start to reopen. It started with hospitals this weekend.
That's right. Gradually taking the shades off, if you will, in Ohio. As you said, dental practices and elective surgeries. A lot of people put off a lot of work. Maybe even too much. Some doctors were saying, a lot of my patients really should have been in seeing me and, stayed home to excess. They would have been allowed to, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, we're starting it out. An intriguing question. The emphasis has really shifted, I don't know about a 180, but it's really shifted a lot from health emphasis to reopening emphasis. And from while there's still talk of the dangers of this bug, it's more about the dangers to the economy, to people without jobs, to businesses not being able to open. So I think there's really been a shift of emphasis of Governor DeWine and the folks in his administration.
Is that, Laura, because we've had some success? We've been staying at home now for 4 or 5 weeks. We haven't gone to bars and restaurants. Obviously, sporting events and concerts and big parties aren't happening. Most people are staying home from work if they can. So that has kept the hospitalization rate down, the death rate relatively down. We're up to over 1,000 deaths now, but we didn't get that big surge. We didn't have to use those beds in the Columbus Convention Center. Is that why we can focus more on the economy now?
I think so. I think Daryl's right. This is kind of a double crisis going on. It's a health pandemic, but it's also an economic, wipeout. And so far, Ohio has done really well abiding by the social distancing rules and staying at home and working from home where they can. And the result has been that we didn't get that giant roller coaster, peak surge in mid-April that we could have had we done nothing. So the goal was reached, which is to not overwhelm the healthcare systems. And I think that the goal going forward is to kind of slowly restart the economy, see where we can lift restrictions, see how that impacts the case numbers, and then go forward with lifting more restrictions.
Daryl, the CDC says you should have a declining number of cases. Of course, we've said over and over again, the case number here is very dubious because we don't know how many cases are out there because we're not testing very many people. I think we're just over 1% of Ohioans right now. But they're supposed to be going down for 14 straight days. That's not going to happen. Hospitalizations have flattened out, but still some people are saying until we get the testing where they want it to be, and the governor says we could get there in a couple of weeks, that should be the starting point when we have testing. Why not wait 2 more weeks?
Well, this is where we see the governor being whipsawed between two forces here. And the old adage about, you have a compromise right when both sides are mad at you. I don't know if that applies here or not. But I think that is of concern to a lot of people. Actually, hospitalizations did take a little jump in looking at the Friday briefing from Dr. Acton. The one of the questions is the curve flattening if you do not count prisons and nursing home cases or deaths. Um, on the other hand, there's not a whole lot of testing outside of the institutionalized setting and with healthcare workers from the front lines. Dr. Acton, I think it was in the Thursday briefing, talked about we really don't know what's going on in Ohio. And when I heard that, I thought, if people sort of hone in on that quote, that doesn't sound real good for going ahead and reopening. Now, of course, on the other side, many folks in his own party. I mean, we had protesters again today, some very aggressive protesters, getting in the face of some TV reporters and acting badly. Um, agitating to reopen and reopen right now.
Yeah.
There are some Republicans are saying we're going to appeal to the U.S. Attorney General and come in and overturn all these unconstitutional restrictions. Larry Householder has talked about, the Speaker of the House has talked about, the governor, you're not listening to us. We want to reopen. That's what a majority of the Republican caucus says. We need to reopen a lot sooner than you are.
Yeah,
So,
Laura, they were saying
there's a
they
real
wanted
interaction here.
yeah, the GOP, at least like 60 some odd members, I think, of the caucus said we should reopen everything May 1st with precautions, not just, let everything back to total normal, but open up everything. What was his reasoning for not opening up everything? I'm talking about bars, restaurants, and stores right away with social distancing, separation, sanitation, wearing masks, that kind of stuff. We'll get to the masks more in a moment, but why not take that lead and just say open everything a bit rather than do it in segments?
Well, I guess that's one approach he could have taken, but I think that the governor has said he wants to be cautious and, peel back one layer at a time and see the impact that has, not just throw the barn doors open and then risk having a big spike and then sending us back to where we started. I think that there were, last I checked, was like 32 or 33 people from the House Republican caucus that had signed on to that, like, reopen by May 1st plan. And, their attitude was, trust Ohioans to determine what is the smartest thing to do, how to protect themselves and how to protect their loved ones. It was, very much of a more libertarian approach than being guided by public health orders.
So it comes in phases. Hospitals, dental clinics open now. If for non-urgent, non-essential procedures, folks stays that don't require treatments that don't require an overnight stay. Next comes on Monday, offices, manufacturing, distribution centers, and I didn't see many construction sites that were shut down, but any that were can reopen on Monday. But they have to face those rules. How many people are actually going to go back to work, do you think, Daryl? I know OSU is still keeping people away right now through the end of June for non-essential folks.
Yeah, and we at the dispatch we're virtually all working remotely. About the only person in the building all the time is our police reporter, because all the scanners and all the equipment is in there and can't really be easily moved. So she's in there much of the time, but she's the only one. So I guess she's really distanced. So yeah, I think we're distant or we're remote for at least another month, if not much longer. That's a great question. And, it's a short-term and a long-term question. You wonder, when it comes time to look back on these days, was this a big hinge point in the whole, why do we need a workplace all gathering in one place? That's so 20th century. It may turn that. But it's going to be real curious to see how many people really do come back, because I've heard lots and lots of places that it's going to be very limited.
Yeah. Nationwide Insurance is closing some offices in other states, not here in Ohio, because they realize that, their folks can work from home, and probably leases were up on those offices. And they said, we're not going to renew the lease. Let those, relatively small number work from home.
Yeah, and maybe we here in Central Ohio, we tend to think of those white collar jobs like we have, and insurance and banking, I guess, so prevalent in our area. But, in manufacturing setting and places where it's impossible to work remotely, those folks who have had to shut down, I'm sure they're going to really welcome going back to work, and hopefully the protections are there and they've been put in. They'll be wearing the protections. They're able to earn a regular paycheck again.
Laura, retails do not open for another week and a half, I think second week of May. And they have to face rules about distancing and employees wearing masks and keeping people apart when they're waiting in line at the stores and things like that. But there was one exception, one caveat today, that some retail can open now, curbside and by appointment. How's that going to work?
Well, for example, let's say that you own a small jewelry shop and you have a customer who's coming in for, an engagement ring or some, something that's been repaired or whatever. Like it's more smaller, discrete appointments where it's a very specific thing. I don't think it's like, go to Macy's by appointment to get, a new sweater or something.
Yeah, I was wondering, could there be a guy out on the sidewalk with a clipboard and say, okay, give me an appointment in 5 minutes, and then he lets 4 or 5 people in, and another 5 minutes, is there a way around this? I don't think people are going to do that, but by appointment seemed kind of odd and open to interpretation, as many of these things are.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was kind of a nod to the smaller retailers, small business owners, particularly in just smaller business owners that are really anxious to get some revenue flowing again.
Yeah, I bought a suit jacket right before this whole thing started, and the clerk forgot to take off the anti-theft device. It's still on there. Haven't been able to wear it because I'm not going to try to test it myself. Maybe I can make an appointment at that department store to get it. First world problems during the coronavirus shutdown. Anyway, as we mentioned, to reopen companies, stores must require their employees to wear face masks. How the governor got to this point in this rule was a bit tortured. At first, the order was clear. Everyone had to wear a face mask, customers and employees.
One, and we've summarized it in kind of a little quote here: no mask, no work, no service, no exception.
Well, 24 hours later, there was an exception. The state changed the policy saying no one had to wear a face mask. Then the governor clarified it again. And customers don't have to wear a face mask, but all employees, in very many cases, have to wear a face mask. He changed his mind after getting some complaints.
We believe that in almost every case, it is safer for everyone if both people wear a mask. But we also know that this was offensive, and it just, people looked at this and they said, that's one government mandate too far.
Laura Bischoff, what happened here? I think it goes to what Daryl's point was earlier, that it seemed like Monday, when he said everyone's got to wear a mask, no exceptions, was public health driven. And then he just did not a 180, but close to a 180 on it.
The whole point of wearing a mask is so that you protect those who are around you. If I'm asymptomatic and I'm going to the grocery store or to the retailer or wherever, if I'm wearing a mask, I'm less likely to spread the aerosols to somebody else. And when you think about how in Ohio, I think Dr. Atkins said about 60% of the population has some sort of a condition that puts them at higher risk. Obesity, that's like 34% of Ohioans. Smokers, 22% of Ohioans. Over 65, I'm not sure what the percentage is there, but you start getting all these conditions, and it turns out there's lots and lots of people who are considered vulnerable. And so I think the public health push was for universal masking of anybody who, you go out into public and you go into a store, that you should have to wear one, and the employees would have to be wearing them. But that did not sit well with a lot of Ohioans who feel like that was a government overreach and just too intrusive. And the governor heard from those people, and he determined that it was going to be just a bridge too far, and that he may end up undermining support for the orders he's had so far. And so he backed off of the customer side of things. Though employees are still going to have to, put their mask on.
Go blue.
Go blue. They're gonna have to put their mask on when they're in their workplace.
Now that mask, many of our viewers, Laura, are going to find offensive. I'll just say that right off the bat. But that's okay. We know you're a Michigan grad. Daryl, did he because it was very tortured because when they laid out the policy on the order on Monday, they were clear to say, we talked to business people. We got the input from business people, and this is the order they recommended, masks for everyone. And then later was, well, some business people don't want to make their customers wear masks. So did he misjudge it, or did what, did he said he misjudged it, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's clear he did, or else why would you change it? It does make it interesting to speculate what pressure exactly he did hear, how strongly he did hear between those 2 days. And frankly, it's for someone who's handled this just from a straight out public relations standpoint almost flawlessly for several weeks on end now. This is one of his bigger missteps, I think, and there's not been that many. So much credit to the governor and his team for that, and Dr. Acton and the lieutenant governor. But this, yeah, okay, I think he stumbled a lot here, and it makes you wonder that And then we've heard from workers saying, "Well, wait a minute, what about our safety? Why do we have to keep them safe, but they don't have to keep us safe?" So sometimes it's darned if you do, darned if you don't. But you're right. I think he went from almost 100% on the safety side to maybe more 50-50. And, both sides aren't terribly happy with that.
He didn't go as far as others. I mean, New York, you got to wear a mask outside. So he didn't go nearly as far, even in the first order, what some other states have done. Laura, I mean, there are calls now from conservative lawmakers, State Rep Bill Seitz from the Cincinnati area. He wants to rein in the authority of the state health director. Is this just frustration that this has gone on now for 5 or 6 weeks? Do they really feel like the governor is abusing his power? Is it just flexing political muscles with bases? What's going on here, Laura, do you think?
It might be a little bit of all of that. I think that the lawmakers are a little chapped that they don't get a say in all of this. And they have kind of a general skepticism of bureaucrats having too much power. The public health law has been on the books for more than 100 years, and it gives the Department of Health director the huge, substantial powers when it comes to quarantine and isolation in the end goal of protecting public health. And Bill Seitz said he didn't disagree that she had that power, but maybe that it was time to revisit that law that's been on the book for a century.
Is she going rogue here? Or I've always called these Mike DeWine's orders. She works for him. She's not going to do anything without his okay, right, Daryl?
Well, he said as much in his briefing on Friday. Yeah, and in response to some criticism, or that he was being unfairly influenced by his health director. This whole dance is kind of been interesting, just to if you could sit outside Ohio and just sort of look down at how it's going on. Laura's absolutely right. That law that gives the health director power that we're just now seeing is very extensive. On the other hand, it's like you've got who's going to really enforce it if push comes to shove. So Mike DeWine is doing a real balancing act here, and I think he's using a lot more power persuasion than he is the long arm of the ball here. And I think that's part of the reason he's sensitive to. He doesn't want to be seen as going too far, because in some ways, frankly, if you call his bluff, what does he have anymore? We saw this very, very early on with the abortion clinics. It's almost like shut them all down, or almost mostly down. Well, long way around the barn, we see the brief is actually filed on behalf of the state, and they allowed all sorts of abortions. And the clinics in the state were not all that far apart in their positions, and we've heard nothing from that. So it's like, you get people who actually do take you to court or whatever. I guess just from my perspective, I see maybe a little backing down. The law is very strong, but his position is as much influence. It's why he's done so well at these briefings, because he has gotten us to do so many things voluntarily. It's really amazing, but it's also very fragile.
Daryl said who's going to enforce it? Well, actually, the law provides that the state health department, the 113 local health departments, and local police authorities have the ability to enforce the law.
Yeah. I'm sure he does not want to see some rogue bartender, restaurant owner going away in handcuffs. That would really fuel protests and things like that.
Yeah, but you know what? Over in Dayton, there's a bar owner who is threatening to just open his club, and with or without government okay.
All right, let's get to our last topic real briefly. We had an election this week, or at least it ended 69 days after it began. Ohio's primary ended this week. No surprise. Ohio Democrats picked Joe Biden as their choice to challenge President Trump in November's election. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty fended off a challenge from the far left from newcomer Morgan Harper. And Columbus State won its bond issue. Olentangy voters in that school district, they approved a school levy. Darrell Rowland, Joe Biden, he basically ran unopposed during the second half of our primary election that lasted almost 70 days. What does it say about Ohio, his chances in November?
I think the best thing, and certainly the Democrats are pounding this drum, is that far more Democrats voted than Republicans in this primary, the first time since 2008. Now, put about 20 caveats after that statement. Number one, of course, this was in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. We had a goofy extended primary season with mail-only ballots. And for the first part of that, only the Democrats had a contest. President Trump was never opposed. On the other hand, if you look at the timing of ballots, some of those counties that measure that, like Franklin County, the Democrats' turnout advantage actually stayed even after Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race. Is that a predictor of the fall? Of course not, but it's something. You got to have something to chew on after this primary. So I think it's an up arrow. And, Tom Perez was on the election night virtual victory party, if you will. And he talked about how, is Ohio in play? Is Ohio not in play? Obviously, the president won up by more than 8 points, the nation's leading bellwether 4 years ago. Perez and the Democrats, maybe there wasn't past the graveyard, but they're insisting it is. And Perez is just not saying that. He is actually devoting a good chunk of money to Ohio. Yeah. So it's not just lip service. It's, the checkbook is out.
Laura, do congressional candidates, Democrats have a chance against, say, Troy Balderson or Steve Stivers or Jim Jordan, even in these gerrymandered districts? It's really tough to beat them, but with all this going on, do they have a chance?
Well, I would say no in Jim Jordan's district, probably not in Stivers' district, and maybe in Balderson's district. It did show during that special election when Danny O'Connor was running against Balderson that it was closer than you would have expected.
Yeah, and Elena Shearer, she's a business person. She's the Democrat who won the primary. She'll face Troy Balderson. She's a businesswoman from up in Delaware County. She's been I don't know how much money she raised, but she seems to have an organized campaign. It's certainly worth watching. And always a freshman congressman is always most vulnerable for his first chance or her first chance at going back before the voters. All right, time out for our weekly off the record comments and final thoughts and predictions. Good luck with that. Some predictions for the weeks ahead. Darrell Rowland, we'll start with you.
The weeks ahead will be entirely unpredictable. How's that for prediction? The one reopening that we haven't really talked about yet is the legislature is starting to come back to work next week. That includes the House coming back for some committee hearings. And again, with special provisions and barriers and separations. We're not even sure we reporters are going to be able to be in the same room. We're seeking to get at least a couple in so we can, because sometimes things happen that you can't see from just the camera elsewhere. But I think you're going to see probably whoever said it right. I guess Laura said it. These guys want to legislate, and they've been out of town a long time, and all this stuff is happening. They ain't been able to legislate. There's just about a bazillion bills on COVID and everything else that's going to come. So I think there's going to be an omnibus bill you're going to see next week.
Laura, off the record?
Well, 25 of the 28 state prisons have confirmed coronavirus cases. 1 in 4 confirmed cases in Ohio is linked to either employees or prisoners within the state prison system. And so my prediction is that it's going to get a lot worse in some of those prisons.
All right, for my off-the-record comment, we will look back at the words from the commencement speaker in 2016 at Ohio State University. At the time, graduates likely wondered, who the heck is this guy? Couldn't we get anyone better? 4 years later, in hindsight, it was a pretty good choice.
Expect the unexpected. This is one of the truisms that can make life quite exciting. You must be prepared at any moment to enter uncharted water.
Good advice to Dr. Fauci, good advice from Dr. Fauci to graduates back in 2016 and to this year's OSU graduates, including our daughter, Madeline Thompson. We wish you all the best. Congratulations. We know that you will be prepared for uncharted waters because the last 6 months have prepared you for that. The graduation ceremony may be virtual, but your achievement certainly is not. So congratulations and good luck to all of you. And if you want to watch the OSU graduation, it'll be live on WOSU TV Sunday at noon. You can also stream it on our website, WOSU.org, and you can watch it if you miss it anytime on demand at WOSU.org. So we're proud to do that for you on Sunday, as we have for every graduation apparently since 1930 something. We did them on the radio. So that is Columbus on the Record for tonight and this weekend. My thanks to Laura and to Daryl doing his best Civil War general impersonation, and and to our crew here at WOSU. I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.